Welcome to Grid Tonight. Today we'll be discussing the response from race car drivers and sanctioning bodies against racism. Plus, the Indy Lights season has been canceled. What does this mean going forward for the entire series? And the return of Nashville Super Speedway, this time hosting the NASCAR Cup Series in 2021. Along with the release of the Formula One season, updated grid rankings, and World Motorsports League standing right here on Grid Tonight. Hello everyone, welcome to Grid Tonight. My name is Joe Samaniego, joined with Kobe Lambeth from the podiumfinish.net. And we have a lot to report tonight. We'll first get started with a serious discussion of the events that occurred at Minneapolis and the reaction from racing drivers globally. Last week, the horrific murder of George Floyd sparked rallies, protests, and unfortunately violence across the United States. The center of attention was Minneapolis in the state of Minnesota. The protests spread to all 50 states, seeing rallies and protests. Most were peaceful, and even saw police departments join in condemning the actions taken against George Floyd. Coming into the race weekend, the first driver to tweet about the social unrest was Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez tweeted, "I feel pain, disappointment, and anger every time I see horrible videos of George Floyd pleading for his life." Daniel Suarez from NASCAR tweeted that, and then following that on Sunday, Lewis Hamilton posted calling out the silence from the Formula One drivers. Lewis tweeted Black Lives Matter, accompanied by a video of a young child expressing how unfairly treated they are because of their race. That leads to Sunday morning. On Sunday morning, Dillion tweeted as well, sharing on his Instagram a statement. On his statement, he posted that the conversation that the hatred is not okay needs to happen in all communities, and we must be willing to talk about it. Bubba Wallace tweeted around noon and shared a video of Sheriff Chris Swanson and Genesee County Police in a Black Lives Matter protest, joining them to the chants of "Walk with Us." Shortly afterwards, more drivers, including Nicholas Latifi, tweeted "Justice for George Floyd" and "Black Lives Matter." Prior to Grid Live NASCAR post-race going on air, Charles Leclerc tweeted "Black Lives Matter." And in his tweet, he states the following: "Racism needs to be met with action, not silence. This is our responsibility to speak out against injustice." Charles also shared that he felt out of place and uncomfortable sharing his thoughts, but he was wrong. Later, Lando Norris changed his profile picture with the words "Black Lives Matter" and provided a link to Black Lives Matter website. NASCAR driver Tyler Reddick also shared a tweet with Black Lives Matter and a picture of George Floyd as well. Countless more tweets from YouTube bloggers that cover racing, additional race car drivers began spreading across social media. On Monday evening, Dillion invited Bubba Wallace to share his experience of racism he's dealt with. And we have a link to the video below in our description. Racing series such as Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR, and more have expressed the same and participated in Blackout Tuesday campaigns along with others, condemning the racism. Kobe, I know Bristol was a break for all of us to enjoy the race, get immersed in the event, but afterwards, how powerful is it to see the racing community, the race car drivers, everybody, publicly share the condemning of the events in Minneapolis and sharing their grief with George Floyd's family?
Oh, Joe, let me tell you this right here. It was absolutely essential that they do something like that to take a stand against racism and bigotry and discrimination, social injustice. Yeah, because these people have a platform, and although and it's up to them how they use their platform. And you would think that when you're in the spotlight, you know, people, you have a microscope on you. It's important for you to speak out against these things because because all of these drivers from around the world, you see, they have fan bases from many ethnic backgrounds, and for their black fans, it's important to know that they have your back. Because if your favorite driver is so and so, and they remain silent, that would be really disappointing to one of their black fans. And actually, when I was scrolling through some of the comments of drivers who did speak out against racism, I saw some comments from black people who supported them, and they were very happy to see that happen. And I believe that all I know, people don't, not everybody wants to see sports and like politics and social issues intersect with one another, but in certain cases, I think it's certainly appropriate for them to take a stand to let them know that everybody is welcome and accepted by them.
Traditionally, athletes have been quiet when it comes to political or major news that could bring a difficult discussion. However, history has shown athletes have used their platform to express the need for social reform and change. From the 1968 Olympics, Colin Kaepernick, the St. Louis Rams after the Ferguson with the hands up demonstration, and LeBron James after Charlottesville. Now we're seeing the racing industry take part of this and voice their displeasure of the social injustice and racism going on. Do you think some of the pressures in the past to stay quiet because of corporate sponsors made it where drivers were a little bit more quiet and more reserved, even though they probably were in the same opinion where they didn't like what they were seeing?
Oh yeah, you know, Joe, when sponsors are involved, and then you try to um, speak out against something that's political or is a social issue, you have to be very careful and choose your words carefully. And obviously, racism is something that many folks all over the world do not tolerate. And of course, we still unfortunately have a large group of people who don't who still believe in racist ideals, which, is my opinion, is very sad. But it was really good to see the drivers start speaking out against this. And you know, NASCAR released an official statement themselves. Formula One and IndyCar did as well, and the NHRA, just letting everybody know that they're not gonna stand for anybody who believes in racism, hate, and even further division, and not just the United States, all over the world.
It's no secret that auto racing is a sport where wealthy individuals have a leg up. It's not the most accessible sport with high costs, and unfortunately, there has been unjust action taken against race car drivers such as Wendell Scott, not being recognized as the winner that night. Willie T. Ribb's documentary Uppity documented all the challenges he had. Now we're seeing all the racing series, NASCAR, F1, everybody are also trying to not only address this, but of course want to bring in a new crowds, more people to come and enjoy their product of car racing. How important was it for the racing industry to make their voice heard, condemning the racism and injustice?
It's very important for the motorsports industry in general to speak out against racism, because as you know, the history of motorsports, there used to be a lot of closed mindedness back in the day. And you saw with Willie T. Ribbs, like Wendell Scott. It was they had a tough time, and they weren't universally accepted because they were black drivers. And people want to be in places where they feel accepted, welcome, and in a place where they feel like they belong. And if these and if these series aren't speaking out against these horrible beliefs, then why in the world would why in the world would a black person want to watch NASCAR, watch Formula One, watch IndyCar? I've even interacted with some of my black peers over the years, and some of them actually told me that they would never watch NASCAR because they didn't feel welcome. They just believed in all of the stereotypes about NASCAR's past instead of seeing how far NASCAR has come with diversity. You know, you have the Drive for Diversity program, and they have the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program (NDIP), where they bring people of try to add more people of color into the sport. Yes, and I feel like that's something that NASCAR just needs to keep on pushing. But you know, spend a lot of time in drive for diversity. Keep on rolling with the NASCAR diversity internship program, and continue to show that NASCAR is a place where all people from all ethnic backgrounds are welcomed, and they can feel appreciated being who they are, and they don't need to pretend to be someone that they are not.
Racism is a difficult topic to address, especially with the George Floyd case being the video and the vivid images of what happened. With drivers such as Daniel Suarez, Lewis Hamilton, Ty Dillon coming out with their statements, I know we saw Daniel Suarez back on the 27th of May release his first statement, and then Lewis Hamilton, Ty Dillon. Do you think that sort of sparked to where drivers were like, oh, I have a duty to make my voice heard condemning what we saw?
Absolutely, and exactly what you call that, Joe, is leadership. Daniel Suarez, Lewis Hamilton, Ty Dillon are leaders for doing exactly what they did. You, whenever there's a situation like this, nobody wants to be first. Like some people may want to speak out, but you don't know how it's going to go over with people. Because I remember a few years ago, if you would have said something like Black Lives Matter, you know, people would literally try to take your head off, and it would. And if I said something like that on social media, I would lose a lot of my supporters, and to see people with the larger platform, or I guess you can call them influencers as well, having them say stuff like that, like Black Lives Matter, and how they take a stand against racism. That was absolutely huge for allowing some of the smaller voices to be able to speak up, and not get attacked by people who think hatefully. And I also believe it was a little bit of pressure put it on the other drivers. As you see, Lewis Hamilton called that the Formula One paddock, who remained silent, and he also addressed them as being a predominantly white organization. And I believe that put pressure on some of the other F1 drivers to stand with Lewis. And the Mercedes Formula One team put out a statement saying, "We stand with Lewis." And then we have Charles Leclerc speaking out, Lando Norris, so Carlos Sainz, Antonio Giovinazzi, Daniel Ricciardo, all of those guys speaking out. And I've seen drivers from just about any discipline of motorsports speak out. And right there in the screen, you have Sage Karam spoke out as well.
Yeah, definitely it seemed like, especially for me, Charles Leclerc's statement when he said, I felt uncomfortable, out of place, but I was wrong, I think really spoke, because it is a difficult topic even for everybody, especially with everything that happened. Now, one, of course, difficult things we saw too was when Bubba Wallace was telling his story to Ty Dillon. He had a couple of stories, particularly with getting pulled over and the tones cops used against him, asking, "You're driving this really nice car. Can you really afford it?" The one time he was pulled over, 5 over the speed limit, 3 cops, guns drawn. In the screen, we have there from those moments where you could see Ty Dillon's face really just, I think, captures the grief, sadness, all the hard feelings that we've been experiencing with everything that's been going on. My question for you, Kobe, have you ever had an experience where you felt unwelcome because of your race, especially in the auto racing world?
Well, Joe, I have three stories that I prepared to tell our audience here today, and I'm gonna start off with my non-racing story. It happened in fifth grade, Washington D.C. At the time, I didn't think nothing of it, but as I've gotten older and began to understand what was going on, I had no idea. As a fifth grader on what was supposed to be a fun school trip, I was racially profiled. As a so my fifth grade class, we were in Washington D.C. About to get on the subway, and and it was and we like me, my mom, she was one of the chaperones, and then we were also with some other black students and their parents as well, and where we were sitting on the subway, that there was a white lady and her daughter, and we sat like right next to them, and I wish you guys could have seen her face. Like if you looked into her eyes, you could have seen fear. And when we sat down, like she held her daughter tight, and she looked like she was scared out of her mind. And and to me at the time, I didn't think nothing of it. But my mom was bothered by it, and I didn't understand why. But as I'm sitting here reflecting on it today, I can see why that was such an upsetting moment. Because all of us, like none of us, we were just there to have a good time. We weren't like we don't want to be seen as a threat on the subway. We just want to feel accepted anywhere we go. And I want to be able to walk in a room and just be viewed as a person and not somebody who might cause destruction or harm to someone. Everybody who knows me know that I'm one of the nicest people that you'll ever meet. Although I seem kind of outgoing on the internet, in real life I'm actually very shy and quiet. Like I wouldn't hurt a fly. I'm just like a big old teddy bear here, to be honest with you. And I want to live in a world and live in a country where I can walk down the street and walk by people, walk in a room, go to a restaurant, you know, be viewed as a human being and not a person who's just considered dangerous. And when I think about that incident in the subway in DC, that's something that really hurt me. And also, and now switching over to the auto racing side of things, when I became a NASCAR fan in elementary school, and when I started telling other students that I like NASCAR, they were like, "Really?" They're like, "You like NASCAR?" They said, "Shouldn't you like something like football or basketball because that would make sense?" What they say watching NASCAR doesn't make sense because I was a black person. And and the one thing that like still kind of bothers me to this very day, I really hate being labeled as the black kid who likes NASCAR. Why can't I just be Kobe, a person who likes NASCAR? Why is it so like why does that have to be so strange? Me being a black person and liking motorsports. Honestly, I don't think that should be an issue at all. I just rather be called a person who likes motorsports and who covers the motorsports to the best of his ability. And it's just been very frustrating over the years. Been labeled as the black kid who likes NASCAR or other forms of racing. And in 2015, I went to my first NASCAR race in person, the 2015 STP 500 at Martinsville Speedway. And guess what? I didn't go to the race with my family. I actually went with another family that I had never met before. So one of my mom's coworkers, he got called in the day of the race, so he had an extra ticket. And and he was like, "Hey, I know your son likes NASCAR. Would he like to go to the race?" And and she was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And and then I got my ticket, and my aunt drove me over to to my mom's coworker's son's place, and and I spent the entire day with them, and they were a white family. I'm very appreciative of them. I felt completely welcome, and not one time did they make me feel like an outsider. They made me feel like a part of the family, and I wasn't any different than them. And we went to the race, had a great time. Was one of the best experiences of my life. And one of the biggest things that I took from that experience was they didn't treat me like, I was they didn't treat me like I was just a black kid with them. They treated me like a human being, and we were all human beings together. And that was really one of the more memorable moments for me.
Wow, that I know the accessibility of racing, especially for urban families where there isn't a racetrack in the city. A lot of times, short tracks are a long drive, and without the major financial backing, Are we missing out on the sport of having new fans coming in? And what are some ways the sport could address it so that way we do have the sport become more accessible for all?
Honestly, I think that's something that we can do ourselves. Like me being a black motorsports journalist and all other people. If you have if let's say if you have friends of other ethnic backgrounds, like and if you're able to, like, say, get them a ticket or a hot pass or whatever, and contact them and try to show them what NASCAR is all about, or any other discipline of racing. Yeah, like, get them a ticket to an IndyCar race or whatever. A Formula One race might be a challenge, because those tickets are very, very expensive. But folks, on the NASCAR side of things, I think that's definitely something that we can do ourselves, and especially people of color who are in the sport. I think people of color in NASCAR can definitely make a difference in getting people from urban communities or whatever, or people from other ethnic backgrounds, access to the sport. That can be our way of giving back, and trying to make NASCAR a more diverse, better community for all, and show all of those people that that no matter who you are, what you look like, or whatever, you are welcomed in the NASCAR garage, and we'd love to have you at the races. And I believe that's a message that I want to challenge people of color in the sport of NASCAR, that we can all make a difference together, and making the world a better place.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kobe. I know when I was starting, especially with the Grid Live, Grid Tonight, I've been following you on Twitter. You do great journalism, always done great work. You're a part of the motorsport family, and just appreciate you for everything you are as a race fan, as a human being, and as a dear friend to me.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate that. And speaking tonight about racing and racism, this is an issue that's meant a lot to me over the years, because I've actually felt like certain ways about this subject, and didn't really know how to put my feelings into words. And actually, on Twitter the other day, I, I posted a statement that I want to read to you here tonight, to close off this subject before we get into other racing news, starting with Indy Lights. But here's the statement that I'm going to read to you, that I posted on my social media channels, because I don't feel like enough people heard it. And here are some of my thoughts. Wow, some people on here are finally showing their true colors. I'm not surprised at all. We have too many closed minded individuals in this world. Some of y'all can hear, but don't listen. Take the time to learn the difference. If you fall under this category, I pray that you find perspective one day and open up your minds. To be perfectly blunt, some of you can't get your head out of your rear end. For days, I've struggled to find the right words. I have to choose my words carefully, or face potentially significant real life consequences, because I don't want to get myself in trouble, fired, or canceled in the field that I've dreamed of being in since I was a little kid. I shouldn't be afraid to speak my mind, but sometimes I am. I'm afraid that years of working so hard will ultimately be the end of the road for me, due to another individual's closed mindedness. It truly breaks my heart watching footage from around the country. What should have been peaceful protests turned into full blown riots. And we're still living in a global pandemic. Protest peacefully. I encourage you, please do not destroy your community or ruin a business owner's lifelong dream. This is just adding insult to injury. I'm extremely upset with the current state of the United States of America. It's unacceptable. It's been that way for too long. We need to be better. We need to change our ways, and this is not okay at all. If you can't find it in your heart to listen, or at least try to understand why this whole situation is so upsetting, not only for me, not only for the black community, but everybody who's supporting this movement around the world. So if you can't find it in your heart to understand, sit back and listen to what we've been trying to say. That then I encourage you to stop watching this video right now, and follow me on, add me on all social medias, because I just don't have time for it. Yeah, so you just disregard everything else. I don't have time for pointless arguments and ignorant people. However, I love open minded people, mature people, people who aren't afraid to have difficult conversations. We need to have these civil, productive discussions to create and inspire change. Please do not be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution that will make the world a better place for your children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, and many generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I definitely stand with you on everything you said, and so grateful I have the opportunity to work with you. You're a wonderful human being.
Thank you. Oh yes. Now we're switching gears. Hopefully you'll stick with us. And we're gonna begin with Indy Lights. Got some shocking news on Monday that the 2020 Indy Lights season was called off due to the global pandemic. This series is best known for the Freedom 100, which has produced excellent racing and close finishes over the years. Multiple drivers have successfully gone from Indy Lights to IndyCar, and it was a great opportunity to gain experience before progressing to the top American open wheel racing series in the country. And here's my question for you, Joe. How concerning is this seeing that the entire season was called off, especially for these young Indy Lights drivers?
Definitely, it's very concerning. I know a lot of times for the race drivers, the Indy Lights had a lot of financial support for the drivers to get, especially to IndyCar. And I know we talked a little bit about the financial barriers that are there for drivers that don't have the funds or don't have the sponsorship connections, and this is sort of a big blow towards that effort for them to advance themselves. Some of the other more well-off drivers could look at different opportunities, different formulas, Europe and all that, but definitely, especially with the Indy Lights, this is something where I feel, especially for the small teams, the employees, the drivers, it's really hurting, and this just another case of this pandemic, which has been really rough for so many people.
While the Indy Lights series may be out of action in 2020, they're planning to return in 2021, assuming a more normal racing season can resume. Do you think other series, especially feeder series, may call off their 2020 seasons as well?
Possible. It's one of those things where, especially we've seen the Macau Grand Prix weekend has been called off. That was a huge weekend for some of the Formula 2000s, I believe, the smaller series, and especially with the internet, YouTube has been gaining a lot more traffic online. And definitely just in general, any development series, short tracks, especially in the United States or some of the local karting tracks where you can't assemble, you can't have that time on the track, has really hurt the drivers. And this could really just have a really negative consequences across where without that we might see less involvement in the future, less teams, less feeder series, and less opportunities.
Yes, I agree with you. It's definitely an unfortunate situation with the Indy Light series. Calling everything off is hard because these drivers, heading into the season, they signed on to race in the 2020 Indy Light season. They were expecting to go racing racing all season in that series, and especially the Freedom 100, which is their crown jewel race in the Indy Light series, and it's just very disappointing for everyone involved. I saw where some of the drivers may try to race in IMSA or SRO America competition later on in the year. Yeah, and that's definitely something. It's going to be interesting, assuming Indy Lights will return like they said in 2021. Are we gonna see a larger grid in Indy Lights? Because if since the other feeder series on the road to Indy Ladder are planning to continue racing, like, are we going to see an increase with the same people who are scheduled to race this season and ones who are supposed to graduate to Indy Lights next year? It will definitely be interesting to see.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the next topic, It was a surprise news report yesterday regarding the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series racing at Nashville Super Speedway. Dover Motorsport has owned the facility, located about 30 to 40 minutes away from Nashville. The racetrack hosted BGN and CTS races and even IndyCar racing since 2021 and up to the 2011 closure. We know NASCAR is looking at a big schedule change in 2020. Did you anticipate the return to Nashville Super Speedway, Joe, instead of the fairgrounds?
No, I did not. I know we've all seen the news where there was like the negotiations sort of come to stalls as the local government there in Nashville, as well as parties try to discuss some of the things going on, especially with that soccer stadium being so close and the logistics of it. This surprise is definitely something where I don't think a lot of people were aware of it going into it. It didn't seem like usually some of the rumors will hear something, oh, Dover Motorsports might bring back, but this just came out of left field. It was just total surprise. So definitely it was a surprise where I think a lot of folks still want to see the short track. I know people are talking about, well, maybe this is a filler to test run before we go to short track, but it was definitely a surprise and I did not see it coming.
Here's my question for you. Although NASCAR will return to the Nashville Super Speedway next year, is this still a big win for Dover Motorsports? Although most people aren't going to get their wish and see racing at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway.
Definitely it's a win for Dover Motorsports. I know there's been a lot of rumors the Monster Mile, which they own, might lose a race date. They've, along with many other tracks, have seen their capacity reduced a lot. The tickets are not selling like they used to. So definitely, this could be something where if they were anticipating the Monster Mile to lose one race date, well, they own this track. They've owned it since they've opened it. They stopped running it after the 2011 season. So this could be a huge win for them to have two dates still, one at each racetrack. And I know it was reported that this is a 4-year deal. So for 4 years, Dover Motorsports is going to have two events, at least two events at two different facilities.
Yeah, and with the race happening just after the middle of with the races happening like around the middle of June next year, normally when Sonoma and Chicagoland would be around that time of year, could this be a potential opportunity for either Sonoma or Chicagoland to get a new date on the schedule?
Definitely, especially Sonoma has traditionally been a little bit in June, right before we get to July and the Pepsi 400. A lot of folks have talked about Sonoma does look a lot more different earlier in the year when there's more green grass compared to the more dry, hotter summer months in California. So that could be a potential opportunity, especially SMI owns Sonoma, so they could probably figure out new dates with that and the other racetracks. With Chicago, it's really interesting just because we all seen those plans for possibly redevelopment. So a lot of people are questioning the future of the racetrack. It has traditionally been around this time, mid-June or July, following the Pepsi 400 in Daytona. Well, now it's going to be really different because now instead of 4th of July weekend Daytona, it's going to be Indianapolis. Maybe they want to move Chicago a little later in the year, maybe back a playoff spot or earlier in the season. So it'll be give NASCAR a lot of room, and I think it also gives a little bit of an indicator of what kind of new deals we're seeing. Nashville Super Speedway has a 4-year deal. Be really interested to see if more tracks get 4-year deals or something, or more or less depending on which track it is.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see what happens next, especially with Sonoma and Chicago. Like for me, I think it would be interesting if they make Sonoma a regular part of the what they call the West Coast swing, to mix it up. And we don't have a road course in the first in the first third of the schedule. And I think it would be very interesting to mix up the schedule and go to a road course very early in the season, so we're not waiting until the summertime, for the first time for the drivers to go left and right, and in the future Chicagoland is up in the air. I remember a report came out a while ago saying that NASCAR was evaluating the potential of adding street racing to the Cup Series, and one of the locations mentioned was Soldier Field, home of the Chicago Bears, and also a potential street race in Los Angeles. Yeah, it seems like street racing is an idea that NASCAR has been entertaining in the past couple of months, and it will be interesting to see if Chicagoland stays or if Chicagoland will disappear and NASCAR goes street racing in Chicago is definitely a story that we'll have to continue following here.
Yeah, definitely will be following that. Of course, the 2021 season has a lot of people eager and excited about because we don't know what big changes we possibly could see with that new schedule since they're looking at potentially big changes. Speaking about changes, the 2020 Formula One season schedule was released recently. Right now, it has 8 races. Now, the reason why they have 8 races, the minimum needed to crown a world champion. So looking at the events, we see the Austria Grand Prix. They're going to have a doubleheader weekend. There's our dates of July 3rd and 5th and the 10th through the 12th. The Hungarian Grand Prix, Silverstone is going to have 2 races as well. The 5th one is the 70th anniversary special Grand Prix. Then when they go to Spain, Belgium, and then Italy. Formula One has said they will be releasing more races, and they do intend to bring more races to the calendar. Now, all these events will be closed to the public, so there will be no public attendance, and all the drivers, teams, personnel attending the races will have to go through some screening, health checks as well. With all these events, how odd is it that we're going to have multiple doubleheader events for Formula One?
It's definitely gonna be different for Formula One because we're living in an unprecedented time period right now, and the races during in the first part of the initial 2020 Formula One World Championship calendar, all of those got canceled, and they have to find a way to make up those races somehow. As we've seen in NASCAR here, we had 2 races at Darlington, and then we had 2 races at Charlotte the following week. And after seeing what happened with NASCAR having the longer race and then the shorter race, I think it's definitely something that's more than doable for Formula One. While the doubleheader while double headers in Formula One, it's gonna be new for them. It's not anything new for the Formula Two series. They have the feature race and the sprint race, and I'm interested to see like what the total scheduled distance for the second races on the Formula One calendar at the same track. Like are we like in July 5th in Austria at the Red Bull Ring? Are we? I'm assuming we're gonna see the normally scheduled distance for that, and then when we return to Austria on July 12th, are we gonna see the exact number of laps or a shorter race? To like make it a more of a sprint race instead of a feature race. I think that maybe that this is something that they could model after what they've been doing in the Formula Two series.
The teams are going to have a very chaotic start with so many races and so many weeks. Do you see this growing the gap between the smaller teams and the bigger teams?
Well. Obviously, the bigger teams are gonna be more equipped for this. Yeah, and you're gonna see, and then once we get back, you're gonna see Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull out front again. I think that's just a given, and I see they proposed the idea of doing inverts. And Mercedes strongly rejected that. I remember seeing the article earlier today. Didn't have much time to actually like look into it. But yeah, and that's something I'm gonna look into later to find out why Mercedes wasn't a fan of inverts. Because if we invert the Formula One grid, it might be exciting trying to watch Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Sebastian Vettel, Charles Leclerc, trying to fight from the back of the field to the front, and imagine a front row of Nicholas Latifi and George Russell. Williams on the front row for the second British Grand Prix race, and that would definitely be interesting to see inverts in Formula One.
An interesting note with the schedule and the races that we're going to have. With those 8 races, looking at last year's results, Lewis Hamilton won on 3 of those racetracks, Charles Leclerc 2 of those racetracks, and Max Verstappen 1 of those racetracks, the Austrian Grand Prix. With knowing these are the 8 races right now, and while Formula One is hopeful to get more races in the future, but they wanted to get 8 just in case to make sure they have a world champion, what kind of mentalities will the team have entering these 8 races? Will they be entering knowing that this is our first out of 8 race to win a championship, or let's try to do well, perform because we know we're going to try to at least get 2 more or the full season in?
Well, honestly, I think they need to. I need that they need to have the mentality that we are going to have a longer season, that we are going to get a complete season, because the world is just so unpredictable right now. But as we mentioned in our previous Grid Live shows, talking about NASCAR and drivers making mistakes early on in the season. Since there is so much unknowns right now in the world, and don't know how long the actual Formula One season is going to be at the moment. I say if you make a mistake early on in Formula One, it you can't really count on having other races to make it up, because you never know what could happen. We could just have an 8 race season, then it's over. So I truly believe that all of the teams need to be perfect all 8 races, because we just don't know what's going to happen.
Definitely. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So much unknown, especially with everything going on. Now, one of the things, 8 races, if Formula One was to complete 5 races or more, then the drivers, especially since Formula One drivers tend to cross over to other series less, will be eligible for the Grid World Motorsport League. The World Motorsport League essentially scores after a driver has done 5 events or more. Now, here are the current World Motorsport League standings after the Xfinity race at Bristol. I know we saw essentially Harrison Burton retake the lead. Brandon Jones is now in the top 10. Joey Logano fell out of the top 10. The main reason why there's only NASCAR drivers is because no other series has completed more than 5 events, but it's still very early. We're looking at a 2021 super season for the World Motorsport League. With the grid ranking only requires 2 events to be done for a series. This past weekend, all the NASCAR Cup drivers that were in the top 5 and in the grid ranking struggled. Kevin Harvick finished out of top 10, breaking his streak. Kyle Busch, all of them lost points and lost grounds. So while most of the grid ranking stayed the same, most of the drivers did stay in the top 10, you can see where the points dropped. Now, this weekend, NASCAR will be racing at not Indianapolis. This weekend, NASCAR will be racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And then, of course, we're all excited about the return of the IndyCar series at Texas Motor Speedway. Be sure to join us Saturday for the pre-race show, Grid Live, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. We will run down everything you need to know about the IndyCar race and the NASCAR race. Following the conclusion of the NASCAR race on Sunday, we'll have our post-race show. It's a minimum of 30 minutes following the conclusion of Sunday's race. We definitely hope you join us. You can find us here on YouTube as well on Twitter. Kobe and myself will be hosting, and we're looking forward to having you join us on Grid Live. Now, one of the things we want to make clear, besides joining us for Grid Live on Saturday and everything, is be sure to follow us on Facebook, everything. And definitely, one of the things is when the racing is here and the season's going, we'll keep going and we'll be doing more and more programs. And we're super excited to have you and see you in future programs.
As we end this program, we'd like to make a closing statement. Global Race and Index Database has been a strong sense of responsibility in covering all racing news. The launch of our YouTube production has been different than we expected, with the pandemic, sim racing controversy, and the racing industry standing in solidarity against racism. Not only do we feel it is our strong responsibility to report on all racing news, but serve as ambassadors for auto racing. We love to share our passion for racing, introduce new fans to the excitement of racing, and promote all the advancements on and off the track. That is our role here, and we will continue to report all racing news, engage with fans through the grid ranking and WML, and provide more content for you race fans. And we'll see you all next time.